welcome back to my channel. I'm Amy from Rebel Nutrition if you guys are new around here. Today's video is actually kind of in response to my previous video on how to create a vision board, because I don't think I've ever received so many questions or DMs about how I got my YouTube video to look so clear, how my skin looks so good, how I got the lighting set up the way that it is, what camera I'm using, all of that good stuff. So I figured I would do another video that broke down what camera I use to film my YouTube videos with, what lighting setup I use, what microphone I use, and just a bunch of other tips and tricks if you're getting started with YouTube, how to make your videos look as good as they possibly can. So the very first thing that I'm going to mention, and maybe right here I will insert a clip of the vision board video that I'm talking about so you can kind of see what I'm referencing in terms of like the lighting and what my skin looked like and all of that, because I think in that video it was super noticeable. And you might be even looking at this video now thinking like, oh, it doesn't look as good. And I am probably gonna have to agree with you. I mean, I haven't seen this be edited yet because I'm obviously filming it right now, but I can just tell by looking at it, it's not quite the same wow factor as that vision board video. And the number one reason, and this is like literally a number one tip I will give you about creating YouTube videos or just videos in general, is that natural lighting is everything. Now, the unfortunate thing about natural lighting is that it varies, right? Like time of day, what the weather's like outside. I got really lucky the day that I filmed that video because the weather outside was like perfect. It was bright, but there was also a little bit of cloud cover, so it kind of diffused the light a little bit, and it was also filmed at around noon, so the light coming in through my bedroom window was just perfect on my skin. So that's number one, tip number one, natural lighting. You always wanna find a window in your house. And just so you guys can see right now, I'm obviously not in my bedroom like I was in that other video, but I'm by the largest window where the light is coming in the most. It's earlier in the morning this time, so the light is kind of coming more in this way. And this was the best lighting setup, natural lighting setup that I could find. So natural lighting, number one. Number two is that even in that other video, I still, in addition to the natural lighting, I was still also using a ring light. So I really highly recommend natural lighting, obviously, and some sort of artificial light. Ring lights are really nice because, again, the circle shape kind of diffuses the light. So you don't see like, you know, a big glaring light spot on this side of my face or anything like that. It's kind of just the most natural looking. So I like to use a combination of both. And by the way, you guys, everything that I mentioned in this video, I'm gonna be linking in the description box below if you want to purchase some of the things I'm talking about. Obviously, it's totally up to you and none of these are completely necessary, but I do really like them. I use this ring light also to shoot a lot of my reels for Instagram. It has a different head where you can either like attach your iPhone or you can put your camera on there, which is really great. Another question that I got a lot is what kind of camera I'm using. And I made a video on this maybe earlier last year, and I was talking about how I use the Canon G7X, which is kind of like an OG vlog camera. I liked that camera, but it was a little bit too big. So once I started traveling last summer, I ended up buying the camera that I use now, which is the Sony ZV1. There are so many things that I really love about the Sony ZV1, and I really recommend it to anybody who's like getting started with YouTube. The number one thing I love about it is the size. It's really small, it really folds up and is super compact, and I loved that when I was traveling because I could put it in any of the purses that I was using, things like that. It also comes with like its own little tripod, which I think just makes it so much easier to kind of prop it up and get the exact positioning that you need. The number one thing that I think you guys noticed when I started shooting with the ZV1 versus my old camera, the Canon G7X, is that there's kind of this very slight beauty filter on the Sony ZV1 that does just like very subtly kind of blur my skin and make it look like, I don't know, like I just got a chemical peel or something. Like it makes my skin look a lot better. So I really love that about the Sony ZV1. I think it makes my skin look better. It also just, if you notice the color differences between the Sony and the Canon, I think Sony colors just look a lot more beautiful. I don't really know exactly how to explain it. It's almost like the Canon colors are a little bit more dull, and then you look at the difference between Canon versus Sony, and the Sony is just like, I don't know, bright and more alive and beautiful. That's the way I would describe it. So I really love the aesthetic features of the Sony versus the Canon. Another thing that I love about the Sony specifically is that it has a built-in microphone. So the Canon that I was using before, the reason that it felt so big and bulky is that I actually had to attach a separate microphone on top of it, which ended up taking up even more space in my luggage, and the Sony has just its own little microphone built in on top. Something else that I love about it, and I think that the Canon actually had this feature as well, but I think this is an absolute must if you're gonna be vlogging, if you're shooting videos, is to have a front-facing camera. You can open it up, flip the camera towards you, and you can make sure, like right now, I'm literally looking at myself, filming, making sure that my head is in the frame, it's not cut off, it looks the way that I want it to look, things like that. Obviously some cameras, like you just kind of have to hold and hope that you're getting your face in the frame. I don't like that. I like to see exactly what you guys are seeing on your end. And so I love the front facing camera. I also mentioned this previously, but it comes with its own little stand. If you get the Sony ZV1 vlogging kit, which I will link to below, that comes with the microphone and the stand, the tripod stand that it comes on. And that is connected via Bluetooth. So, I mean, if you're holding, like you're vlogging, you're holding the camera, you can just like press the record button on there and have it stop, and you can zoom in from there rather than having to like deal with the top of the camera. Hopefully that makes sense. But there are just so many features about the Sony ZV1 that I think make it like the perfect beginner vlogging camera. Not to mention, it's really not that expensive compared to a lot of other cameras. And I think if you're just starting out, you really don't need like the highest quality. What I do in my business with a lot of purchases, whether that's software or technology like a camera or a lighting setup or anything, is that I like to kind of prove to myself that something's going to be worth it for me before I end up investing in like the most expensive option. So to give you an idea, when I first started with YouTube, I was like, I'm gonna just record everything on my iPhone, because if I can't commit to being consistent and recording things on my iPhone, a camera is not gonna make me consistent. You know what I mean? So I think it really doesn't make sense to invest in really upgraded, expensive things unless you have proven to yourself, kind of like as a treat, like, okay, if I'm consistent, then I can buy the more expensive camera. Otherwise, you end up just buying like a bunch of expensive things that you never end up using, and like, what's the point in that? Now, a few downsides that I will say about the Sony ZV1. And I hate that there are downsides, but I feel like I really have to be honest with you. And I will say too, I don't know if like I have a faulty one or if this is something other people have experienced with the Sony ZV1. So you guys are gonna have to let me know if anyone else has experienced this. But mine only records for about 4 or 5 minutes at a time, and then it stops. Usually, I mean, there's a little like icon in the lower left-hand corner that says that it's recording, and I notice immediately when that turns off. But sometimes I forget, and then I'm like, shoot, did I, like, what part did it cut off at? So I have to rewatch that whole clip and figure it out to start filming again, if that makes sense. So that is really annoying. Number 2 is that it overheats really easily. So this summer, when I was trying to vlog in like 90 to 100 degree weather all over Europe, it would overheat a lot, and that obviously becomes quite a nuisance if you live somewhere hot. Now, it's winter here, it's pretty cold. It doesn't really happen during the winter because of the weather, but if you live somewhere hot, it's definitely something I would be aware of, because you're probably, it's really annoying. Like it gives you a little heat icon and then shuts off. But I'd say overall, if you're shooting like short clips and you're not, you know, outside in 100 degree weather all the time, then you're gonna be good with the Sony ZV1. I absolutely love it. I think it's great. So now I already kind of mentioned the lighting setup I use in terms of artificial light. I love the ring light. I think you can also, if you want to go like really over the top, you can actually use 2 of them so that you have balanced light on each side. But really the main thing, you guys, is the natural light, and that's something that you can't purchase. Unfortunately, you gotta have a big window in your house, time the lighting right. Okay, my camera literally just overheated, so I don't know exactly where it cut me off. But we've talked about lighting, we've talked about camera, we've talked about microphone. Let's talk about editing. So right now, I no longer edit my YouTube videos. My assistant edits them for me, but we use Final Cut Pro. So Final Cut Pro is a paid program. It's pretty much like the gold standard for editing. Even people who are like really advanced use Final Cut Pro. I really love it. I think it's really easy to use. If you're just getting started and you want to try something a little bit easier and free, iMovie is a great place to start. Honestly, it has a lot of the same features as Final Cut Pro. Final Cut Pro is just a lot more advanced. So again, if you're starting out and all you have is your iPhone and iMovie, you can absolutely start a YouTube channel with just those two things. That's how I started. And once you get the hang of things and it makes sense to upgrade, you totally can. Now, as far as things like thumbnails or graphics or text, things that like are showing up on the screen in my YouTube videos, or the thumbnail is like the cover photo, or even like promotional graphics and photos that we create when I'm sharing my YouTube video on Instagram stories and things like that, I use Canva for everything. So the easiest way to do this, easiest way to find thumbnail ideas or graphics for your YouTube channel and your YouTube videos is literally go to canva.com and type in YouTube thumbnail. You'll see a bunch of like options come up, and then you can just choose one that you like, change out the colors, change out the photos, change out the branding to make it fit your vibe of your business. And it's just super easy and the most aesthetic way to do it if you don't want to hire a designer. Now, lastly, and probably the most important thing, the most important piece of advice I would give to anybody who's starting a YouTube channel, even though I just mentioned all of the softwares you can use and the setups you can use and things like that, the most important thing that I want everybody watching this to take home is that your equipment doesn't really matter that much. If you want to start a YouTube channel, if you want to start a business, literally the fact that you have any sort of camera doesn't matter. If you have an iPhone, again, and that's all you have, that's really all you need. You don't need a fancy microphone. You don't need a fancy lighting setup. You don't need fancy editing software or an assistant or all of this other stuff that people make you think that you need in order to be successful. Literally to this day, my most viral YouTube video that I've ever created was from my iPhone in my parents' house, no lighting setup. I don't think I had a script. I hadn't washed my hair that day. Nothing special about it whatsoever. It was literally good content that I was sharing about my skincare routine, and it's still like very popular to this day. You can find it on my channel if you want to know what I'm talking about. But I hope that is inspiring to you guys to feel like you really don't need to have all the special things, as long as you have the motivation to like create an interesting video, find some keywords that people are asking you about, the videos that are performing well, and just create a value-driven video. It's okay if you don't have the perfect setup. So I hope all of this inspires you to just start where you're at right now with what you have, and you can always upgrade in the future. As your YouTube channel blows up and starts making ad revenue, then you can hire a team, then you can purchase all this extra stuff if you don't have the budget for it right now. Now, obviously, if you do have the budget and you just wanna kill it right out the gate, obviously you can totally do that. I'm gonna link to the Sony ZV1 vlogging setup that I mentioned before. I'm gonna link to my ring light that I love, all that good stuff. And if you guys still have questions about creating YouTube videos, let me know. I'm happy to make more videos like this. And I really appreciate you guys so much for watching. I hope this video was helpful, and I will see you in the next video. Bye.